Saturday, June 15th is a huge night in harness racing. 13 races at Woodbine Mohawk Park with a ton of stakes action, two $100,000 guaranteed pick fives, a mandatory payout in the high five in the last race. And of course, we have free PPs for the entire card. You can see a QR code on your screen. Go over to that and you'll get some free harness side PPs for the card. I brought along Jay Bergman, and we're going to talk about the $1 million North America Cup. Jay, it's quite a field, isn't it?
One of the best I've seen in a long time, and best I said for overall quality, depth, and actually post position draw just makes the race very, very challenging as a handicapper, and certainly the fact that we have horses coming together for the first time, a lot of them, and really the fact that they haven't been pressed yet, and I think Saturday will be the first time all of them will be pressed this year.
Well, all of them were in action last weekend, and we're going to take a look at some replays. We're going to start with the morning line favorite, Captain's Quarters, and take a look at his win from last week where, he worked out a really nice trip off very fast fraction set by Gem Quality, Jay.
That's one of the things about eliminations. There's a lot of strategizing going on in the middle of the race, and everyone was waiting, and certainly Jody was waiting for Captain Albano and Todd McCarthy to pull, and once he got that live cover and just towed into the race, it was just a quarter-mile sprint, and he sprinted like I expected, and certainly Captain Albano sprinted well too.
Did you feel like Captain Albano really didn't have a tough trip? Like that was a trip maybe he could have won off of?
I think maybe he could have won off it, but I don't know that it really matters that much. I think, everyone's trying to conserve as much as they can for the final while still making the final. So it's like, winning at all cost. Obviously, he could have drawn a poor post for the final. He didn't, but I thought he raced respectably. And also I thought that he hadn't really been pushed all that hard in his first two races.
We're going to take a look at the second elimination. This one is going to be won by Fun Time Bayama, who's right now sitting the pocket behind Legendary Hanover. And these two were the favorites. They figured to be right there on the wire, and they were. Were you disappointed in Legendary Hanover here?
I'm having a hard time figuring out Legendary Hanover. I think there's a question of how much heart he has. Obviously, speed he's got plenty. When you see horses run off by 8 lengths, it's hard to tell whether they're going to be brave or not. And, when they're put to the test and they get passed, now you question just how much of a fighter is this horse and how much of a speed talent horse is. Horse has tremendous speed, but maybe he doesn't have the same heart as he has speed.
Captain Luke was third in that race, a horse where I thought he would have a little bit more in that elimination. Could we think that maybe he's still trying to get to that peak condition?
I'm not on that camp because, I think Tony Alagna year after year trains these horses fairly hard before they get to the races, qualifies them pretty fast to make sure that they're tight when they get there. And I think when they get out on the racetrack, they're what they are. I don't know that they necessarily marginally get better week after week. They usually perform at a high level every week. And I kind of agree with you. There was a sense that you should have seen a little bit more out of them.
The third elimination featured Nijinsky as a really heavy favorite, and he certainly delivered. The trip worked out pretty well for him, though, as well.
Yeah, Nijinsky, there's nothing you could say bad about him right now because ultimately he has performed against the best horses in Ontario, which are some of the best horses in North America right now. And he fights. This was a good trip for him because he was able to come from off the pace and respond. And again, as you see, he gets a challenge from the inside late. And, like I said before about Legendary Hanover, the opposite is true for Nijinsky. I think he sees a horse coming. He's like, let me pick up the bid again. And, the connections have been very careful, but they seem to be very happy about how this horse responds when tested.
Do you make anything of the fact that Captain's Quarters and that elimination went about a second faster than the other two eliminations?
Not really. I think they've all been around the same times this year. I don't know that distinguishes them or not. It's hard for me to say what Captain's Quarters is or isn't. 2 weeks before the elimination, he ends up racing against Nijinsky and was no match for Nijinsky. And last week, just the trip worked out for him, but the fractions weren't taxing. It was just a sprint. So I'm not so sure. I can't really elevate Captain's Quarters, but you certainly have to make him favorite material.
I think what's interesting is you have there's a lot of contenders in this race. Let's, start with that. But beyond that, you look at the outside of the gate and you have a lot of the long shots are on the outside of the gate. Ivy Park, Total Stranger, Janelle Granny. if one of them decide, or multiple decide, that they want to be part of this action, doesn't that kind of, mix things up a little bit?
Listen, I expect 100%, and again, that's my 100% expectation. Is not a guarantee that's going to happen. You have Ivy Park and Total Stranger, the outside, and I don't think there's been $1 million race, $100,000 race, $5,000 race that Yannick Giwner didn't decide to leave the gate from the outside. So, Ivy Park definitely, and Total Stranger, all we've seen Total Stranger do this year is try to blast out of the gate. So I don't know. Regardless that Yannick chose Ivy Park over Total Stranger, I think they're both going to blast as hard as they can, because getting a tuck fifth is not going to help. Getting the front is the only thing that's going to help for either of them, and I expect one of them to be on or near the lead at the quarter pole.
For me, when I look at this field and I see, let's say Captain Albano, Captain Luke, the Gins, they're all basically going in the 149 range, somewhere around there. Yes, Legendary Hanover threw in a 48-mile at one point. I'm trying to think which of these horses is going to give me more. Which horse has more left in the tank when I'm looking at my selection here, for the final. And for me, I'm looking at Captain Albano as a horse that maybe I haven't seen his best yet. And I'm looking at the progression. Every week he gets a little bit faster. And to me, I'm thinking that he might be a top selection in there. And that's who I ended up going with. And I think you feel the same way, Jack.
Well, you listen to Noel Daly speak, and he doesn't seem to get too excited about very much of anything, especially, he says he doesn't train them that hard, or that fast, I should say. I can't say hard versus fast. It's two different things. But he doesn't train them that fast. He doesn't expect, that they won't be. He says they won't be short when they go out there, and they're not short. They're not flashy. Like I said, you talk about the Legendary Hanover, Nijinsky, and Funtime Bayama. They've all came out going in, under 1 to 150. The fact that Captain Albano didn't have to come out that way, didn't have to go as hard early. I think it just plays into Noel Daly's general way of getting horses prepared. And like I said, even last week, not stressing out necessarily about having to win the race, but just, being in a good enough spot that you could make the final, and we'll get our best horse coming out in the final.
Let's flash our picks up on the screen. We both actually went with Captain Albano, though we went a little bit differently underneath. I went with Captain's Quarters because I've been very impressed with what I've seen from him so far. You went with Nijinsky underneath.
I've been very impressed with Nijinsky because, like I said, the speed and desire and the handiness and the change between 2 and 3. I think that's one of the mysteries of all this. You try to handicap horses as 3-year-olds with limited starts, and you're trying to analyze them this year versus last year. And the horse that's really stepped up from last year to this year is Nijinsky. He's certainly a totally different horse. A horse that you can, do whatever you want with and seem to get the response from him. And like I said last week, I really felt that the fact that he looked like he was coasting and then suddenly saw a challenge and said, okay, we got to pick it up again. It seems to me he's got enough speed just to keep going and going and going. And now that he's put it all together, I think he's great there. I think this is more about a driver's race than it is about a horse's race. And that's, I think that's why I fell onto Todd McCarthy and Captain Albano, because I think he's really, really cool in big situations. Obviously, he's won major races since he's been over here. And I think that the inside helps him navigate in a better way than some other people might be pressed from the inside. I think he's relaxed from the inside, and I think that's going to be an advantage for Captain Albano.
One of the things I wanted to just mention here is, for me, the Captain Albano pick also comes down to price. I feel like when you have the Canadian horses, Nijinsky, Captain's Quarters, Funtime Bayama, they might take a little bit extra action, because they're the Canadian, the hometown horses in a Canadian big race. Not that a lot of the money doesn't come from the U.S. as well, but I felt like maybe you can get 7-2 or 4-1 on him as opposed to a shorter price on an undefeated horse in Nijinsky or Captain's Quarters, who, won his elimination so impressively.
And I can't argue that. I just feel like, what we talked about in the intro and the fact that there are so many horses that are bettable in this race. I mean, this might be the longest priced favorite in recent North America Cup history, because it really is a question of who should be the favorite. Not, I mean, Captain Squad has won last year's Metro, but then he didn't race again. He's come back. He's progressed, but not necessarily in a dominant way, in a nice way. Captain Albano, again, last year's performances aside, he's been good this year. Funtime Bayama has been tremendous this year. There's no question about it. I mean, he showed what kind of grit he's got, and he's a player. So I think there are plenty of horses to bet. I think that, Captain Albano would be a nice price, but I kind of think whoever you choose in this race is going to be a fair price.
Well, the $1 million North America Cup is going to be a great race. It's race number 11 on the Saturday, June 15th card at Woodbine Mohawk Park. I'm just looking at the rest of the races on there. And the one maybe I'm most looking forward to outside of the North America Cup is the Mohawk Gold Cup, which is, I guess, technically not a stakes race. It's an invitational, but it's really got an interesting field where, you have this horse coming in from down under who raced really well at the Meadows last time. And you have Oakwood Arden, who's trying to step up to this level. Alleyway Hanover, who's been at this level for a long time. Is that the other race you're looking forward to on the card? Or what is it that, is there a horse or something?
Derick, I think it's always fascinating to see when horses come together for the first time what we're going to find out. And certainly Oakwood Arden IR has been a bright spot at the Meadowlands during the winter. And, it's one of those things in recent history, we rarely get a good horse racing during the winter that's suddenly, facing these horses, come summertime. So that's it's a different picture totally, but a horse that deserves our attention. I'm looking forward to the filly pace, the Fan Hanover, just to see how they're going to settle themselves out, because my girl EJ, I thought showed a real bit of herself last week and came back, and I'm just wanted to see what Geocentric is or isn't. I mean, I'm Geocentric not winning her elimination last week gave me visions of last year and Tim Tetrick failing with Confederate in the North America Cup, racing off the pace, figuring I got to race off the pace with Confederate. He's an off the pace horse, and I kind of wonder whether Timmy used that last week with Geocentric. Like, I have to race off the pace with her. I don't want to put her on the front end. Well, Fan Hanover final, I think there's no other choices but to put her on the front end and to see what she is. So I want to see what Geocentric is. I'm hoping she's the filly that was undefeated for a long time last year. But my girl EJ and certainly a few of the others are real talented as well.
Well, it'll certainly be a great evening. $100,000 guaranteed. Pick 5 starts in race 1, 6:30 post time. Then the all stakes $100,000 pick 5 starts in race number 7. Get your free PPs. Check it all out. It's going to be a great night of racing.